This was brought to you by Franklin County Internet Gaming Society on YouTube and Facebook.
Hello everybody, this is Infamous OG1973. Today I am here with another interview, and I'm proud to say that the second interview that I'm doing is with my oldest son. For game purposes, we're not going to use real names, so I'll just call him Sage Sage Theory. Sorry about that, Sage.
Sage Theory.
Now, before we start getting into the questions and everything, I'd like to ask Sage to tell us a little bit about his role-playing background and a little bit stuff like that. Tell us about your story behind your role-playing background, and if you want to say how old you are, where you're from, that'd be fine too. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm like almost like 28 years old, so I've been playing D&D since I was like 14. So I've been playing for like a good 14 years. And I kind of just been like when I was younger, I used to play as a player a lot. The more I've played, the more I've been starting to DM lately. So yeah, that's basically it. And there's quite a few other role-playing games I like Neverwinter Nights is kind of a D&D based type of thing where you get to role-play, and Skyrim's pretty fun.
Okay. So, do you want to tell anybody what city you're from, or where you're at?
I'm living out in Michigan City, Indiana.
Alright. About, like, networks, do you want to put your Gmail out or anything like that? Or what games?
I'm just kind of a nobody on the internet.
Okay. That's the perfect way of saying it, man. See, we're getting off to a good start already. I'm just a nobody on the internet. Okay, so now with that behind us, I'm going to go ahead and ask you your first question. Could you please, name some of your gamer names that you've used in your role-playing games? Not the gamer names on the internet with like Minecraft or anything like that. It's just.
Oh, you mean like my character names?
Yeah, character names.
Yeah. Well, my most favorite character was a paladin. His name was Darren Marshall. He was a human paladin that ended up becoming the Holy Warrior of Aronius. It was a pretty fun one to play. On Neverwinter Nights, I had a character. What was that?
What was his name?
Darren Marshall.
Oh, it was the same guy? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll shut
You're
up.
all good.
I'll shut up. Go ahead.
And on Neverwinter Nights, there was like role-playing servers, and I had a Cobalt Sorcerer who I went by the name of Zeo.
Okay.
And he ended up becoming like a leader of a Cobalt tribe that he joined.
Okay. Is there any more?
Shoot, I also had a Dwarven Cleric who was a defender of Moradin. He was a pretty cool character.
Is he the same name?
His name was Redellin Flintwood, I think is what I called him, or Flint something.
Okay.
I think it was Flintwood, yeah.
Now, here with the latest name, what's the latest character name that you usually, the last one that you used?
What was the last one? I think his name was he was a rogue. There was also a I had him classed into something else. He was a rogue that was a invisible blade. And I think his name was I called him John Madlock. His alias was Nocturne.
What was his name again?
He was a human rogue. John Madlock.
Alright. Do you have a story behind that name? Any specific reason?
Yeah. Yeah, he was basically a career criminal for a local, kind of like a thief, like a local criminal cartel, basically.
So you.
And his mentor was a Silver Blade, and he ended up having to kill his mentor. that was his worthy. You killed him with a dagger, and that was his worthy kill as to become an invisible blade. So he ended up having to kill his master because he was getting set up by the guild.
No, what made you choose the name to go with him?
Well, because I thought it was just a cool name for like a human rogue. Like he's just like from like a city like slum.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
And he kind of got recruited by the cartel.
So he was basically from the slums, you know. I mean, so
Mhm.
you kind of.
And he was an extremely talented like thief and sort of like an assassin. Kind of like a good muscle for the guild.
Does he have a really extensive background, like backstory?
Yeah, because we started our characters at level 5 in that campaign.
That's cool. You think you could tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Like because I played an invisible dagger, so pretty much what they were is they were rogues that pretty much just used daggers, and have to pull it up because they were a really cool prestige class.
Oh, you're gonna pull it up?
Yeah, because essentially what the invisible blades do is they get more sneak attack bonus to their more hit dice to their or their damage dice to their sneak attack if you're just using daggers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you actually make a successful dagger sneak attack, you can sacrifice a point of damage to just put bleed on him.
That's pretty cool. So.
And he was pretty much trained. He was pretty much trained by his master to become that, and then his master betrayed him because he was getting a little too powerful for the guild.
Now, with his master, do you have much of a storyline on him?
Not too much. Like his master was like a big, high-ranking like guild.
He was a what?
Kind of like a high-ranking like officer in the guild.
Oh, okay. And he basically took him under his wing. And
Yeah.
started teaching him, and then he turned on him after he started getting power.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course that was his worthy opponent when in single combat when using one or more daggers, because that's the requirement to become an invisible blade.
Okay. So he had to end up fighting him to become an invisible blade.
Yeah.
The same guy that taught him.
Mhm.
Now see, that kind of reminds me of another game I play, or I used to play. It was Mage the Awakening. You had your clans too. You know what I mean? They're not really clans, but guilds, and nobody trusted each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they knew they had to work together, but at the same time, they didn't really trust one another. And
I'm saying that was the last character I played, and that was a while ago.
How long ago?
Probably like 3 years ago.
3 years ain't too long for me, man. Just so you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just okay. Now, on your other names that you mentioned, is there anything you want to say about their names and where you came up with the names for them? Or anything that
For one of my characters.
the ones that you mentioned.
Oh, like Aaron Marshall, he was a paladin. He was in the order of like a crumbling like city, like the city was crumbling into some sort of calamity. He barely survived it, and he pretty much grew up in this order from a very young age. He was an orphan. He became a paladin of Veronius, dedicating his life to him.
Okay. Now.
And he really grew as a character going through the campaign too.
So when you named him, what made you decide to name him the name you gave him? Is there any special reason for it, or did it just sound good?
It just sounded like the kind of thing like you name like a knight or like a holy warrior, maybe a crusader or something.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, so.
He really grew his character because he went to go to his order, like the cathedral of Veronius, to get some help and to warn them about the calamity.
That's where the story first starts off.
Mhm.
Of course, that's just where it starts off.
I mean, Yeah.
So.
Then he meets up with the rest of the party. I think one of them played a monk.
Oh yeah, monks.
Yeah, and the other one was like she was a rogue. She was like a rogue fighter.
Yeah.
They use like a whip chain or whatever.
Now, in the monks, did you use their equipment that was specifically set up for monks, or was it they could just basically have whatever they wanted? Because they've got cool equipment, tools and weapons and stuff.
No, he pretty much used like a lot of his unarmed combat and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked that is because, like, you know how I was talking to you earlier about using a lance, lance to turn into a bow.
Yeah.
They're really into lances and stuff too, so that's the reason why I was asked. Not too many people actually have monks in their campaigns. At least not from what I've been used to.
Yeah, 'cause that paladin, he ended up becoming like the leader of the party, and he would like guide people through like all the stuff that's going on the way to the Holy Cathedral.
Okay, now
like run into a.
What was the main objective for the campaign?
We were supposed to stop this like calamity going in from the heavens, like it was like a being trying to create all of the planes into one.
Okay. Now.
This wasn't my campaign. I was actually playing in this one as my paladin.
That's fine. I mean, I just figured I'd ask what that was, or what the main campaign objective was.
Yeah, because at a certain point we didn't finish the campaign. It's hard to finish a D&D campaign, really.
Yeah.
But we got pretty far into it.
Okay, now.
Like my paladin was just like a monster in that campaign.
How long did you guys actually play it through? I mean, did it take months, years?
Yeah, it was months. Like we got to level 11.
That's pretty
which
good.
Which is pretty far in D&D. Yeah.
Exactly how many months do you remember?
Maybe like 3 or 4-ish, I want to say.
Yeah, that is pretty good. You guys were really getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so...
Yeah, because like my paladin is one of my favorite characters I think I've ever played.
Now, there was this one other one that you mentioned too. I think it was in between. You said the paladin, and then you said the last one. Wasn't there one in between?
The rogue. Yeah, and Neverwinter Nights. I had my sorcerer, my kobold sorcerer.
Yeah. Is there anything interesting about him?
He was pretty much he was really like gifted with magic at a young age when he was in his old tribe, and he kind of just became what was that?
Could you kind of explain a little bit about the tribe that he came from?
It was just your basic tribe of kobolds who worshipped can't remember what the kobold god's name is.
And did they wear little tikis and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're really tribalistic.
Okay. Tropical island kind of tribalistic?
Yeah, it was on like an island, yeah.
Because, I wanted to kind of like set the scene straight, because there's tribes in jungles in the middle of Africa, and then tribes on islands, things of that nature.
And he ended up just like not really caring too much about the tribe. Like he didn't like the evils they'd commit, so he just ended up abandoning the tribe and go on his own.
Did you ever bring out like the sort of evils that they committed, or was it just like what?
Yeah, like attacking caravans, robbing, stealing.
They didn't get into cannibalism.
And basically, no, but the kobolds will like stab each other in the back. I think that it's convenient for them. And they're an evil race of they're an evil race generally speaking.
Yeah. Okay. So since we're past the tribal thing, I mean, I figured it was a good thing to bring up. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always a good story there.
Yeah.
If you want to go on with your story about him.
Yeah, he basically just like went together with a tribe of other like outcasts of kobolds, and they made kind of like their own faction on the island.
Okay.
and can't remember exactly what the clan name was called. But it was a whole clan name, and my character was a sorcerer, and he was training like young, magically gifted kobolds how to control their power.
Oh, that's cool. Do you remember what kind of magic he had?
He was more of a war mage. Like he had a lot of like destructive evocation spells.
Oh, that's cool. Evocation.
Yeah.
Alright.
And this game was multiplayer too, so like all the other kobolds in the tribe was actual people who were playing it.
There you go. So now talking about role-playing games, you know, could you kind of give us a background on different kinds of role-playing games that you do play?
I mean, like tabletop, like D&D, what we're talking about right now, and do like a few like strategy role-playing games, like what have I been playing lately? Like strategy role-playing games, like Final Fantasy Tactics, stuff like that.
Basically, you're real focused on D&D then?
Yeah, I play a lot of Skyrim too.
Technically, that's not, you know, I mean, it is role-playing, like on a video game, but I don't like put it in the same category as like D&D, because it just, D&D rules, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how else to say it. Like, you talk to somebody on the computer who plays Skyrim and they don't play D&D, they just don't understand, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Explain to them what FACO is and stuff, and they just kind of like, yeah, whatever, you know, my computer does that for me, so.
I mean, there's a lot of like good old school role-playing games, like the old Final Fantasy games are good.
Yeah, I remember the old Final Fantasy. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Alright, now, what editions of D&D do you like to play?
I mainly like 3.5, but I do like 5 too, sometimes too. But mainly 3.5.
Alright. Before being a DM on a campaign, what are some of the tools that you think a person should always have before starting a campaign? Or just starting as a DM, you know what I mean? What's some of the most important tools you think they should have?
I mean, the Dungeon Master Guide's something you need for everything. Like, if you're doing 3.5, like I usually like to do, because that has like everything you need, like rewards, treasure, magical items, just different guidelines that you need.
Okay.
Because you're gonna have to, like, if you do it like I do it, like when I write everything down, I have to go and reference all these books.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else?
That's just the big thing. Is just, you know, get a bunch of references as you can when you make your story.
Now, what kind of references would you suggest?
I mean, really, as much as you really want. I mean, the basic bare bones is you want the DMG and probably the player's handbook too, so you can, you know, have like rules you can fall back on to look through, see if you can do something. You know, that's if you even really go by the you know, rule book, because some people don't. It really just depends on how you run a campaign.
Okay, now, when it comes to like the dice and everything, do you think the Dungeon Master should provide it, or you think it'd be something more or less for the players to all come together?
I mean, really, like a lot of people who are in D&D will just get their own dice. You don't have to ask them.
Yeah.
From my experience.
Okay, now.
But, you know, generally, I usually have plenty of dice to give out if need be.
I mean, you gotta admit that is a good question, because a lot of people show up to a D&D game and they don't have anything. I mean, I've been to so many of them where you have to write stat sheets out for them, you know, on a blank piece of paper, just so they can play.
Yeah.
So I just figured I'd put that out there, you know. And talking about dice, okay, in a D&D game, what dice would you should players have in order to run a campaign? I
mean, really just every type of dice you need, like a couple, like maybe 4 or 5 D6s. D20 is, of course, your main dice you're going to use for every roll. They're all pretty essential.
Okay. Now, yeah. Okay. Now, on the dice and everything, is there like any specific things that each of the dice are used for? You know what I mean? Could you explain some of them?
Yeah, like the D20 is pretty much going to be your main dice you roll for every sort of like skill check, attack, saving throws. It's pretty much just going to be your main dice. You know, it's called a D20 system. And then like most of the other dice, you'll just aim more for like damage for like your weapon or maybe a spell that will do a certain amount of damage.
Like your D6.
Which is pretty much like your D6, your D8s, your D12s, your D4s. And that's mainly just damage, and then you have like your percentiles or D10s. It's pretty much if you need to roll like percentage chance on something.
All right. Now, on the literature, what literature should a DM have close at hand, and what should they have ready before deciding to DM campaigns? Like right when you're at the game and you're ready to run your campaign, what kind of literature should he have right there at the game?
Pretty much all the core books, like the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master Guide, and definitely the Monster Manual.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked that is because I've known plenty of situations where like a PC he'll call you out on something and then you have to say no, look, it's right here, man. You know. So you gotta say that's the way it is. This is the way the book says, and this is the way I want it. You know. So
yeah.
I've seen that plenty of times.
Me too.
So, how does that make you feel when that happens?
It kind of sucks. Hopefully we get past it.
Do you enjoy it, or?
Well, when people argue about like rules.
Yeah.
No, I don't enjoy that at all. This is like the most annoying thing ever.
When you get through it, though, I mean, have you actually resolved any arguments or anything like that?
Yeah, it happens, but sometimes it doesn't in the campaign ends. It's a shame, but it happens, you know.
Yeah. Let me get this crazy cat real quick. He's at the door meowing.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay, so he got nosy. He wants to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand that completely, man. It just completely ruins some games and everything. You'll have a whole room full of people playing, and you know, you get a big argument about it.
Yeah.
All right. Could you explain a little bit about the stat sheets and how they're used in the game?
Yeah.
Switch my windows over to where freaking we can see that. We can kind of go through it. So right here we have the stat sheets. And do you want me to go ahead and ask each question, or you want to?
Yeah, you just go through it with me. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so over here it has the gear, and we have armor and / protective item. Okay, and then
Yes. Yeah. So that's pretty much just what your character's wearing, like armor-wise. Like, you know, if you're wearing like a, you know, what kind of suit of armor are you wearing? Are you wearing leather armor, splint mail? Like, what kind of protection do you have on your body?
Now, in the part where it says type, you know, what kind of types of armor are we talking about?
Like light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor are pretty much how they're classified.
Okay.
And if you're not wearing any type of those type, you're unarmored.
AC bonuses. What's that all about?
That's pretty much it goes towards your armor class, which is what like everything has to roll in order to hit you with an attack. That's pretty much represents your defense.
Okay. Are you able to say that off the top of your head? Like
how to figure an AC.
Yeah.
I know it's 10 plus your dex plus your armor and a shield if you have one, and then any sort of like magical protections like a ring of protection or something.
Okay, no.
I think, yeah, actually, if you look at the front of the character sheet, it'll give you like the equation you need.
Never even popped up the front. Did I? Yeah, I just did the back.
Yeah.
Get that real quick. Neither one of them popped up 2 tabs. Alright. So let me go ahead and switch that over. So I think it already did, didn't it? Yes, it did. Isn't that pretty neat? It's the first time I've actually ever used this original source on here. So
Yeah.
now we have the front, and this is what you're talking
And then, yeah, if you go up to the armor class at the very top,
Yeah.
it actually shows the equation you use to figure in your total armor class. The 3.5 character sheets are really good.
This is the 3.5
It does.
character sheet, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows. Okay. So now,
And that sheet is just really good because it lays it all out for you to figure out.
it's pretty nice. Now down here with fortitude and reflex and will, that right there is underneath it. That doesn't have an equation going in there, does it?
If you look to the right of it, that's the equation you use to figure it. Those little boxes.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Which is going to be, those are saving throws, which is how you figure if like a certain like effect or a spell hits them.
Okay.
Like fortitude pretty much represents like your like hardiness, like it's how you resist like a poison or a disease. Reflex is pretty much how like quick and fast you are. That's how you would figure if you like dodge like a trap or something, or somebody throws a spell at you. If you're a rogue, you can just dodge, roll out of the way with your reflex.
Now with
And then will is pretty much your go ahead.
with all of this that we're talking about, which do you suggest writing with, a pencil or a pen?
A pencil, because it's all going to change.
Okay. Just wanted to say that, or ask that question, because
Yeah.
that is pretty important. I've known a lot of people that's actually tried to use a pen and then regret.
Yeah, no, this is all going to change over time. Like, you'll be like erasing and marking different stuff. But yeah, but then the will saving throw is pretty much, it represents your mental like strength. So if anybody tries to like use some sort of mind affecting spell on you, you know that's how you can resist it.
Okay. Now, up on top, everybody pretty much knows, or they should know, what strength is. Like dexterity, and then constitution, and intelligence, INT. You know, you think you can go through some of that?
Well, dexterity just represents your character's like physical quickness, like how like fast is he, how much reflex does he have,
Okay.
kind of like just how graceful is he.
Okay. What about constitution?
Constitution is just pretty much how like healthy they are, like how sturdy they are. That's for your hit points and stuff like that. The better constitution you have, the better you can resist like diseases for like your fortitude save.
And then earlier when we were talking about drinking and stuff in the game, that also, I know that's a part of constitution too.
Yeah.
Just
Like, if you think of like dwarves who are like, like big, like hardy, folk, that's pretty much why they have like a constitution bonus.
Yeah. Now, intelligence and wisdom, what's the difference?
Intelligence is pretty much like, you're like raw, like how educated you are, how smart you are, pretty much.
Okay.
Like you're pretty well learned. If you've studied, you're pretty well learned. It's really important to have a good intellect to learn how to master the arcane as a wizard.
Okay. Now, what about wisdom?
And wisdom is pretty much, how insightful you are, how insightful you are. You can think about it as like, a monk is a really wise, character.
Okay.
because he thinks about things like philosophy and stuff. A philosopher would have wisdom, or a priest who has like who preaches the teachings of their god.
Alright.
He's imparting wisdom.
Now, charisma. The big charisma. I love when people talk about charisma. I don't know why, I just do.
Well, charisma kind of represents two things, really.
Okay.
Because the one thing that represents as a character is, like, you know, personality. How likable are they as a person? Like, are they like a natural leader? They have a high charisma. And also, like, if you notice, like, every sort of like natural like ability, like a sorcerer can just naturally cast spells. Like, he has like a raw talent for it. That's kind of judged by charisma.
Yeah. Or like a warrior who freaking wants to just rush into battle. You know, kind of like that too, right?
Yeah, like you know, if you are charismatic enough to like put fear into your enemies, that's another thing too.
Okay, so
it's really interesting, and like another thing about charisma, it's also like tied to like the paladins use charisma to judge like the gifts that the god gives them.
okay, now does charisma affect initiative?
No, it doesn't. That's something you would figure your dexterity for.
I've had that question asked quite a few times, and I've had to go through that, so I figured I'd bring that up in the video. A lot of people don't realize they're two separate, you know what I mean? They're not linked together.
Yeah.
So, alright. So, bringing up initiative, you want to kind of explain that a little bit?
It's just pretty much how you would figure like who goes first in like the actual like combat. So like when you first start a fight, you just like roll for initiative. Whoever has the highest roll goes first, and it descends like, you know, who's the highest to lowest.
Alright, so now we get to the good. We got freaking flat-footed.
And like one other thing about initiative, like it's based on dexterity. So whoever's like the more dexterous character will probably have a higher initiative.
You get this cat out of the room
And go first.
He wants to be out. He doesn't like listening to our conversation. Alright, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay, so with flat-footed, that's one thing I wanted to bring up too. You think you can talk a little bit about that?
So flat-footed, that's what your AC is going to be. Like when we talk about our armor class, you're adding in a factor which is going to be your dexterity. So if you're caught flat-footed, you lose your dexterity bonus to that, and it's just your armor and the base of 10.
Okay, now in the actual game, like when you're in,
and whatever magical bonuses you have too.
Like say you're in the campaign, okay? Now how does your flat-footedness, I guess you say, how does that affect you in your performance?
You're just easier to hit, typically. It's probably worse off if you're like a high dexterity character, because that's like the main stat for your armor class. You just lose it. Or it's like if you're like a heavily armored character, you know, you're kind of not really as dexterous, so it really doesn't affect you if you lose your dex. Anyway, you know.
Yeah. And what about tripping and everything like that? Does it affect tripping? Bounce back?
That would be a separate thing. That's kind of like its own like maneuver, I guess you would say, for like combat.
Yeah.
But I don't think flat-foot doesn't have anything to do with that, no.
Okay. Now, we've already covered the top part there. Unless there's something else on here that I'm missing on the front you want to discuss.
Well, the opposite of flat-foot would be your touch armor class.
Yeah. You're about touch.
But,
sitting right next
which, you know, but you know, if you want to think about it, it's just basically, as it sounds like, it's something that touches you that damages you. Like a wizard that has like an electric touch spell, he just has to roll for a touch. So you lose your armor class for that because your armor's not really stopping it from happening because you're just touching somebody.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And really, if you're a heavily armored character, that's not a position you want to be in. But if you're a high dex character, then you should be fine. You're relying more on your dexterity than your armor.
Okay.
So it's pretty much like if somebody reaches out to touch you, you can just dodge them.
That would also, like you were talking about, like if it was an electrical charge or something like that.
Yeah, like a shopping grip spell from a wizard.
Yeah. Now, like there's weapons that can apply the same things that these spells are. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
would that affect you with touch, or could some of them?
I think that's the Vaporeal effect that does that, or Vorpal Blades. Yeah, Vorpal I think does that, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It's just pretty much a touch attack for your weapon. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's actually.
Because like it's just it's a blade that ignores armor.
Yeah, I forgot which.
It's a really powerful.
Yeah,
it's a really powerful magic effect you can put on a weapon.
I think I just went through the armor guide, and I think it was like up in 10th or 11th, something like that. Okay, so what about base attack bonuses?
That's pretty much going to depend on what class you play. Certain classes have a better base attack bonus than others. Like if you're like a fighter, then like a fighter, you would have a better base attack bonus because that's your career. You fight in combat. That's pretty much that represents is their martial combat.
Okay. Now, when it comes to base attack, which one would you think would be best, and which one do you think would be the worst if you had to line them up? Say,
fighters are probably have the best base attack because they're just that's what they are. They're just they're warriors.
Yeah.
Or soldiers, and the worst would probably be wizards because they're quite the opposite. They're more scholarly. Like they study the arcane arts, which gives them their power over training with a weapon.
Which brings us to spell resistance.
Mm-hmm. And spell resistance is kind of weird. Like I think you have to, whenever you have spell resistance, I think you roll a percentile. If I remember how it works correctly, because you say you have like a spell resistance of like 10, then you have a 10% chance to like nullify the spell effect on you. So you roll a percentile, and if you roll like 10%, then the spell's just gone. It doesn't affect you.
10% of what dice?
The percentile, so 2d10s.
Okay. Alright, now what about grapple?
Grapple is just pretty much, it represents how like a character like can like constrain somebody or pin them to the ground or hold them, with their bare strength pretty much. And there is pretty much like a formula right there on the character sheet that shows how to do it. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I like how this 3.5 sheet is. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it pretty much like helps you figure everything out. You just have to look through the source.
Yeah, and down here, do you want to go over the attacks and things like that? The notes?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Your attack's pretty much your base attack plus whatever like skill your weapon uses. Like some weapons will use strength, some will use dex, or some people are trained to use dex for like a feat. I know ranged attacks are used with dex for like archery and stuff like that. Melee attacks generally use strength unless you're trained in using dex.
I like it on here too how they even allow you underneath to keep track of your ammunition too. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Alright. So now I'm gonna flip over to the back side and see what we got going on there. It is pretty cool, man. I dropped that tab and it went right straight to the back side. Like I said, this is the first time I've actually used that. I'm impressed by it. Alright. Okay, so we talked about armor and protection, and what is that? Protect from. Can you Can you see that better than I can?
What are you looking at?
It's down underneath armor and protection.
Protection, check penalty. So there are certain skills,
Yeah.
like climbing, like your climb skill, your acrobatics. Generally, just think of like physical like things you do, like tumbling or climbing or swimming.
Okay.
Armor usually, like the heavier armor will usually have like a penalty to that, so you take away from your roll if you have like heavy armor.
Yeah.
The lighter the armor it gets, generally the lower the check penalty. Unless it's like something like, you know, special or crazy. That's magical.
Yeah, and they have the option here, or they have spots where you can have your speed and your weight, your special. Is that proficiency?
Special properties, like if it's enchanted.
Yeah. But down underneath that, they have shield.
Because the important thing to know about like armor is like you also have like a max dex restriction.
Yeah.
So the heavier the armor you get, like the more it takes away from your dex. So say like it's only a max of like a +1 to your modifier, then that's the highest you'll ever get out of it while you're wearing that, even if you have like a high dexterity.
Okay.
Because the armor is kind of constraining you, so you're not moving as like quickly as you would if you didn't have it on, you know.
Yeah. Now they have a option or another spot down here, shield/protection item. What's the difference between the armor/protection item and the shield/protection item? Is there any difference?
I mean, basically, like you have like ropes that give you like an armor bonus or something like that, you know.
Yeah. So, but basically, it's the same, other than like robes. No. What about like leather and things of that nature?
Because there's also like certain bonus things that give you like a bonus armor class bonus, like a ring of deflection.
Yeah. And there are different types of armor too. Like there's wood armor. Freaking.
Yeah.
I think the elves do armor out of like leaves and stuff like that too.
Another important thing to talk about is the check penalty. Is the where is it at here? Spell failure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. See, isn't that just down below it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No talk.
Because the heavier the armor you're wearing, the more chances you have for your spell. If you're like a spellcaster, that your spell will just pretty much disappear. Because you can't focus on casting a spell when you're like bogged down by armor. And so like when you actually like have spell failure, you have to roll a percentile. And if you roll like whatever percentage chance you have, your spell will just disappear. You'll lose your spell for the day.
Special percentile is listed right next to it too. So if you have this sheet, you can just go ahead and put that special percentile next to it, and you're good to go. You got it all right there in front of you.
That's a really nice sheet.
Now, the area that has the protective items, what kind of items are they talking about?
Pretty much things like a ring of deflection, +2 to get like a +2 deflection bonus to your armor.
Okay.
Or maybe like you'll have like a amulet of natural armor, which will give you a armor bonus of natural armor, because there's different types of bonuses.
Alright. Now,
because if you go through like the kind of every way that you can to figure up your AC, it's like 10 plus your dex bonus plus your armor bonus and shield bonus if you have one. Then there's deflection bonus and natural armor bonus.
Okay. Now with the other possessions, that would basically be everything else that's not listed, right?
Yeah, just like little things like tools or that's pretty much your inventory.
Down here they even have it set up where they have light load, heavy load. Is that lift?
They'll even give you the equations for your lifting items and stuff, pushing.
Yeah.
That's based all off your strength. There's a whole chart in the strength section that pretty much gives you like a table of how much you can carry.
Now feats, what's that all about?
Feats are pretty important. Like you get one every 3 levels and your first level.
Okay, what do they do?
They're pretty much like special characteristics and special abilities that your character has. Like your character has like Feats pretty much the amazing things your character can do if you want to think about it that way.
Okay, like make an example. Like what kind of feats did some of your characters have? Like the rogue that was your character. What kind of feats did he have?
He had stuff like weapon focus on like a dagger, so he was just like extremely like focused on training with that dagger, where he became really good at with it. Two-handed fighting is another one where it pretty much lets you be more proficient with wielding two weapons. So he wielded two daggers at once. I think another one he had was trying to think, it was a while since I had that character.
Now, did he have pickpocket stuff like that?
Yeah, those are skills. Those are different from feats. But feats is pretty much like stuff like cleave, where you can like slash into another like enemy next to you if you like fell one.
Okay.
Like stuff like that. They're really powerful. You get one, I think, every 3 levels. And that's kind of like the main focus of the fire class too.
Now, what about special abilities?
Pretty much like stuff you'd be able to do in your class. Like a paladin can turn undead or do unholy smite or a holy smite. Then there's like certain things like spell-like abilities you can get from magical items and stuff. You can cast spells, though it's just like a natural ability.
Alright. Okay, what about spell save? I'm not even gonna talk about spell category because everybody knows what a spell is. What about spell save?
That's pretty much the modifier that enemies have to roll against in order to avoid your spell. So like if you throw a fireball at somebody, they have to roll a reflex save, and that's gonna be what they have to roll.
Okay, and how do you calculate a reflex save?
I think it's 10 plus your caster level, I believe, and then it's gonna be like the spell level. I think is what it is, along with like whatever your primary ability is, like intelligence or wisdom, if you're a cleric or a wizard.
Now, down here where it says Arcane
Then there's like miscellaneous. There's miscellaneous stuff too that adds to that, like a spell focus feat. I think does that as well. It's another thing about like spell casting. It's kind of complicated
It's important.
when you get into the nitty-gritty of it. Yeah, it's more of like an advanced like realm you get into when you do magic. It's really powerful.
Yeah. Okay, now what about this Arcane Spell failure? I noticed
That's what.
it's got the sheet and everything.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier with like wearing armor and stuff. Just another spot where you can put it with the rest of your like spell things on the sheet.
Now that's a worksheet you can do underneath that goes with that too, right?
Yeah, and I was right. If you notice, like there's a way to figure your DC for each level on the left-hand side.
Well, it looks like we covered both front and back.
Yeah, and that's pretty much, and then above is pretty much like a spell list and your different spells and stuff, which I never use. I just get my own separate sheet of paper for that.
That's what I was saying. I mean, I didn't even, if you didn't even want to talk about it, we didn't have, I mean, because the average person knows what a spell is. It's just.
Well, spell casting would be its own separate thing. There's a lot into it. It's really advanced.
I was just talking about like that actual sheet, you know? Like,
Yeah.
because that's what I've basically been going through and naming them off, and then letting you do as much explaining as what you want to. You know, and after doing this, is there anything else on the top of your head that you want to mention before we move on?
Not really. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like you have the languages at the bottom for how you communicate with different races. Generally, that's figured by like your intelligence. So if you like have more of an intelligence modifier, you can learn more languages.
That's on the front page, I believe.
No, it's in the back.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. So all the way at the bottom.
It is. It's even got money down there.
Yeah, and then there's the money, which is just basically copper pieces, silver pieces, gold pieces, and platinum pieces. It's like the standard monetary way. pretty much it for the sheet, I think.
So, let me get you back on here. And we've talked over the sheet and everything. Talked over about the dice. Now, when we finally just talked about all the generals, like the dice. We talked about all the tools that we need, like for the materials and stuff like that. And now I want to get more into asking you questions about you playing the game. Okay. So now I'm gonna ask you: do you enjoy like character building?
Yeah. Like there's two sides to it. Like I like building like different, like powerful like builds for the characters. Like my paladin was a fun build to run, just in gameplay wise. And also I like going beyond it with like having like an actual like storyline to my characters. Like trying to like ingrain them into the world.
Do you incorporate your characters with drive and motivations and apply that into the campaign?
Yeah.
What kind of what kind of motivations, or what kind of drive do they have? In some of your characters that you've actually done that you can talk about.
Like my paladin, he pretty much just became motivated to fight the evil that destroyed his order.
Okay, and what was that?
Because in that game he
what motivation exactly was that? Like sometimes a village gets attacked and families killed, or you know what I mean? Yeah, that's a form of motivations.
Yeah, like the whole city crippled. Okay. The whole city got crushed under that calamity. And he was wanting to go to like the main order of Erroneous to seek help.
And that started on the whole campaign. What about his drive, though? You know what I mean? What drove him?
Just his, belief in Erroneous and being a warrior of good. I know, like one of the first things that happened on the way to the order was bandits were holding people hostage, and he pretty much gave himself up and said, look, I'm from this order. You can, take me, and they'll probably deliver a ransom for me. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to convince the bandits to do that and take him prisoner. And then like the people I played with had to come break me out of prison, right. like this bandit stronghold.
Yeah, I've had you describe some of your characters and everything before, and we talked about the drive and motivation and stuff, but what about like your NPC characters, you know what I mean? Do you enjoy building NPC characters as well? The ones that aren't player characters, and you have to actually, do you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, there are like some interesting characters I make in the background. So this is like I do usually write like overarching stories when I DM.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about the NPC characters in your campaign, or in your campaign?
Yeah, like I've had like heroes, the heroes of the world that would be in there that you can get involved with. Definitely like big villainous people and creatures.
Right. Like give us a specific character from a specific campaign that you really got into. You know what I mean? Be a bad guy, good guy, whatever. Just kind of give us a little taste of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there was like a drow, like he was kind of like a spell sword. And he was a hero of this main city that the players I had the players go to, and he pretty much fought off like his fellow drow that were invading the city, and he became accepted amongst the surfacers in that city. Players meet him because they learned about the history of it. And the last time he kind of disappeared from it because the city got attacked by a kraken. So it's out like on the sea. It's like a city state. And then just like a giant kraken came in and wreaked havoc on it. And last he was seen was fighting it.
That was the last time you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the wizard in freaking just talking about Tolkien too.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, when he got in a fight with that dragon, he was falling down in that pit with him.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the movie. Kind of like that.
Yeah. Like bringing in like big heroes that have like been established in the world beforehand.
Yeah.
Your players just kind of like up and coming, you know.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I mean, that's really a good way of setting it up. What do you enjoy about world building?
Yeah, it's just kind of like stuff like that, you know. Just making like different like background stories. I like having like an overarching like plot to it. Also, like when the players actually like flesh out the characters, I do my best to incorporate that into the campaign, you know.
Tell us a few world-changing events that you've added to campaigns when you were a DM, like things that could destroy an entire world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the campaign I was running, we never got to finish it, but I had a whole plot set with it, where there was a lich in the future who was coming back into time to pretty much take control of the weave, like the weave, or how like the spells came to how wizards control their spells, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty much the magical layer around the world. And he's a lich of the future who comes back in time to set it up to where he can gain control of this.
Now, the special layer around the world, do you think you can get a little bit more into that, kind of describe it? Just get a
Special
what? That special layer.
The weave?
The weave. You think you can be a little bit more descriptive about that? Kind of give us an idea, a little deeper insight into it?
It's just basically like a weave of, it's just pretty much like the magic within the, you know, the universe on the material plane. It's pretty much an idea I always use from like Forgotten Realms. That's just like,
just kind of from the scratch, if you have to, let us know a little bit about how that works. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, this is basically like, this is basically how magic's described in Forgotten Realms, where there is a weave that is on the material plane, and wizards that's given from like the god of magic. Can't remember his name. He's a god of magic, and he has this weave on the material realm.
Yeah.
And that's arcane. And that's how like arcane wizards and sorcerers, you know, pull from to put out their magics.
Yeah, I like that. That's that whole concept is what got me into where I actually like playing Age of the Awakening, because their concept was this was our world, and then there was the higher world, and in between the higher world and our world was like an abyss. And you had to reach into the abyss to freaking get magic from the higher world, and when you did that, you brought a piece of that back. You know what I mean? From the abyss too. And that kind of got me interested, you know. So that's the reason why I pointed that out, and figured I'd have you talk a little bit more about it, because those.
Yeah, and he was just pretty much the main villain. He was basically trying to engineer events to happen to where he could position himself in the past in order to pretty much take control of the weave and become essentially a god.
Yeah, makes sense. That's pretty good.
Because in the future, like, it's pretty much over, like, the plane's pretty much like destroyed.
Yeah.
So he became a lich and decided to go into the past to take control of the weave.
Now, you remember where you left off before I interrupted you, do you?
What was that?
You do remember where you left off before I interrupted you and asked you to talk about the weave, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You can go
Still on the world building.
Yeah, on the world building. So, after the weave part, is there any more that you wanted to add? Finish off what you were saying?
Up to that, it was pretty much like the heroes. They had to figure out like what was going on. With this like really powerful like bandit guild that the main wizard guy was pretty much funding in order to, you know, have like his henchmen to do what he needed to get done.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how they get caught up in all of it.
Right. So tell a little bit about some of the worlds that you've created. You know what I mean? Like, you know how you're talking about like the weave and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what about the actual world? You know what I mean? Like kingdoms and creatures and just general the way the world was. You know what I mean? Was it brutal? You know, was it like fantasy? Was it a mix of brutality, fantasy, whatever? You know, you kind of give us an idea of what kind of worlds you're into creating.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of just depends on like the story I want to tell with it, honestly.
I mean,
Because I made one about like the demon wars, like a demon tried making like a demon war one
Mhm.
or devil war. Yeah, devils.
Well, this is all about you know what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
what you're creating. So I mean, just let us have it. I mean, tell us all about your worlds, man. You know?
Because I know that was like the big one I did, and we did that one to like level 12, I want to say. So we're really into that one.
What kind of creatures did you have in it?
Trying to think exactly how that one went. I know there was like bandits, so they were fighting early on. Then we went to like orcs. They went through like a troll infested forest. So they had to fight trolls. I know the last big thing they fought was a young silver dragon that was corrupted, and that was a pretty fun fight because they were like in this like pocket dimension fighting them.
That's pretty cool. Now, this pocket dimension, what was that all about?
It was a pocket dimension of the wizard they were chasing.
You just created it,
Yeah.
and they had to enter behind them or something.
Yeah, basically.
That's pretty cool.
And it's just pretty much like a broken world, how I envisioned it, that was hovering in like this void. And there was like a chapel sitting on it, and there was a dragon guarding something.
Oh, that's cool.
It was like a corrupted dragon, because like the pocket dimension kind of corrupted him.
Yeah, he was guarding.
And he was guarding some really good magical items that I made for my players to get if they beat the dragon.
You mind telling us what those were?
I can't remember off the top of my head. That was so long ago.
I figured I'd give it a shot.
Yeah.
Alright. How do you deal with background stories?
Oh. Well, I just pretty much try to integrate them into the world as best I can.
Just kind of let them go as you need them, or do you always have it all set up? You know?
Yeah, pretty much have it as I need it. Because I pretty much make my D&D setting, I try to have like a general like overarching story, but I don't try to write too much into it, like at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there have been times where I've written a bunch of stuff and I've just kind of thrown it to the side because the players didn't even do that.
Yeah. That kind of leads into what I was about to ask you. You know, like how do you generally DM a world that you're running your players through? So, and I know that's really important because like it is important. Don't get me wrong, to have a background story, but at the same time, it's really not about your outcome that's important. You know what I mean? Because like your players, they aren't going to cooperate with you no matter how hard you try. Somebody's going to freaking go off course somehow.
Yeah.
So
that's why I kind of like landed in the middle of like meticulous planning and off the cuff stuff.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, how are you handling things like trading goods and like the politics in your world, or in certain areas or certain events that come up? How do you deal with that when you're running a campaign?
I mean, just pretty much think of a scenario that you'd put a city in. Like if the players are starting off in like a hunting outpost, like they're in like the wilds, like how they interact with the wild.
Yeah.
Whether it be are they hunting game? Do they have to fight off like goblins and stuff?
Yeah. And what about like when they have to trade? Do you make it to where they trade goods and stuff?
Yeah. I said I make a basic world. It's just I kind of fill it in as I go.
Yeah. And then like
just because it's just it's just the way I do it.
Now, do you like use hirelings and stuff, or like get involved with guilds that freaking do hirelings work and things like that? You get caught up in all that?
Yeah, it's an option. It just really depends on how the player how the player wants to interact with that kind of stuff.
Are you generally though? Do you generally put that into your stories?
Yeah, if that's what the player wants to do.
Okay. All right. Now, how do you deal with your PCs when they're how do you deal with your PCs? Are you restrictive or laid back or in between? I mean, like just in a general way when you're running a campaign, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in between. Like, there's plenty of rules from the book that I do use because they're really useful to have to give the game some structure.
Have you ever been known to bend a rule?
If I don't if there's a rule I don't like, I'll say that we're not using that rule or something like that. I'll let the players know about it. Like, for example, there's passive wisdom in 5th edition that I'm not a fan of. That I just don't use it.
No, say a player has a problem with an issue, you know what I mean? It's not really a big deal, and it could affect the way players act in your campaign. It's not really a big deal. Do you just let it go?
Oh, if they do it?
Yeah.
I just tell them they can't do it.
That has to be asked. I mean, I don't know how you can avoid that. So it is a good.
If they try to do something, I just say you can't do it. And that's it.
You just can't do it, man.
Yeah.
I'm a freaking DM. Sit down and shut up.
But I usually stick within the structure of the game because it does give the game some good structure.
People respect you for that too, believe it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if you turn around and you let people slide like that once, twice, 3 times, next thing you know they're gonna get used to it. They're not gonna like you as a DM.
Yeah.
It's the sad part of it, but it's actually the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
Alright.
But it's when it's the end game though, what do they want to do? I pretty much let them, figure out what their character would do,
Yeah, because you're telling the story,
And they're part of the story, they can guide it however they want.
Yep. Okay, how do you deal with situations in a campaign where your PCs go off the beaten track, straying away from the campaign's storyline, or the goal that you want in your campaign?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Basically, when that happens, it's pretty much a lot of thinking on your toes. Because there have been some sessions where they've just pretty much not done anything that I was hoping they would. I would just have to make something up on the fly. I've kind of gotten better at dealing with it the older I've gotten, the more I've DM'd.
Okay.
Because it doesn't take me long to think up something that could make it an interesting thing.
You give us some examples? You don't have to say.
Pretty much, huh?
You don't have to
What was
state
that?
names. You don't have to state names or anything.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, there have been times where they would want to do something with trying to think about my last campaign I ran. He wanted to pretty much get integrated with the criminal system, so he did jobs for them in order to gain influence in the city.
Yeah.
When they arrived to the main city, port city that I had.
Now, that's a subject too, because I've noticed that too. If you're running a campaign with characters that are aligned differently, one's good, one's neutral, and one's evil. Have you ever done that before, where you had to actually, well, not really evil in the middle, you know what I mean? But have you had to deal with different alignments in a campaign?
Yeah, That's pretty much something I let the players kind of work out themselves.
Mhm.
It's like they have to think about how their player would play, how their players would react to one another.
Do you give them points and stuff if they play according to character?
Yeah, I'll reward them with like some good role playing experience at the end of the session.
Now, when they play according to character, what level are we talking about? In the game, they act it out, or like when you're sitting around and you're all in a circle and stuff, and they freaking actually play the character. You know what I mean? Make the voices.
Yeah, like they converse. They converse, and they're in the role of the character. Yeah, I like that. I reward it.
Because that you got to admit that is an important question too. Because there's different ways that people DM. Like they don't really care if you are outright openly doing it, but as long as you're doing it in the story. And then there's others they want to see it. You're sitting there.
Yeah.
There's different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's been plenty of times where people are just sitting around like the table at the tavern, just having like a good conversation about different things.
Yeah. Okay. What level of magic generally is?
Because I will say there's always like this one little trick I do whenever I start a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if they're in a tavern, I'm just like, all right, you guys are in the tavern. What do you do?
I don't ever like starting out in a tavern. There's two places you'd never put me because I know something bad's gonna happen. It's in a tavern or on a trail. Okay, if you're on a trail walking through, something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
No, it's kind of cliche, but it's a good way to start a campaign. A good standard way.
It really is. It really is, but just if anybody ever does this, just let it be fair warning. And you start out in a freaking tavern, something bad is going to happen. But it's good. It is if they start out there. Okay. What level of magic generally do you use in campaigns? A little bit? A lot?
I would say a lot, because I like rewarding my party with magic items for tough encounters and stuff.
Okay.
And also, it's just pretty much like that high fantasy, like, magic and dragons and all these creatures and stuff. It makes it more of an interesting, like, story and game in general.
Now, how much do you incorporate into your campaign? Like, can you tell me, is it insanely amounts, or?
I wouldn't say insanely, but like a lot. Like you'll get magic items for too long when you're playing my campaigns.
So, how do you?
But I also kind of balance that out with like some. I wouldn't say like difficult. Well, I guess you could say it would be difficult encounters, but like you would just have to like, not difficult, but I try to challenge them.
Yeah. Now, do you allow like NPC characters to come in that have a lot more magic so they can assist in the campaign, or do you generally?
They would have to figure out how to convince somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Like, why is he helping you? Like, what does he get from doing this?
Yeah. I mean, you personally, as the DM, do you like introduce these NPC characters in?
I mean, yeah. Like if they're telling me like they're looking to hire somebody for like a bodyguard or something, I'll just pick up like a mercenary type character.
Okay, now mercenary. Now, when it comes to mercenaries, are you really big on the pricing and everything about mercenaries? Like when you have to negotiate with this, race of mercenary, they're usually aggressive, and in order for you to tell them what to do, you have to freaking show dominance, things like that.
Yeah, like pretty much have to negotiate the price and everything with them if they want to.
Yeah.
But that's just be up all their decision.
Okay,
If they want to do that.
You leave that up to them, then.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do you handle stuff like jewelry, outfits, accessories, and specific outfits? Especially like magical outfits, and stuff like that.
I just go by the standard of the edition, like 3.5. There's like 11 like item slots that what you wear, like your armor, your shields, belts, two rings, or one ring on each hand if you wanted to. Amulet, gloves or gauntlets, helmets.
Okay, so you basically go by the standard that's set down according to the game in the statute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy using
It's a
potions?
pretty good.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't
So yeah, it's a pretty solid system, you know. And there's even some items that don't even take up slots that you can use too.
Okay. So do you enjoy using potions, and how do you incorporate them into your campaigns usually?
Potions, I mean, pretty much if like somebody in my campaign doesn't want to be a cleric or healer or whatever, I'll put in potions. Put some more potions in their treasure pool they can find.
Now, poisons too. That's another thing I should ask. The same question, except for instead of just potions, poisons. How do you do with that?
You know, like if they're like out, I guess like wilderness, you'll run into some like poisonous like animals and insects and stuff. Like some weird like creatures. They'll have different like diseases and poisons and such.
Yeah. And do you use poisons in like armor and like weapons?
Yeah, if the character wants to do it, or if they're like fighting some like assassin type character, they'll probably use poison on their blades. It's all about the context.
I can already tell, like, when I'm asking you these questions, like, it's not even about you, you know what I mean? It's about the story, man. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I ain't got no say about it. I mean, if friggin' they want a ninja, I'm gonna give them a ninja. You know? It's up to them, man.
The players cool. The players pretty much make everything happen. Yeah. You know.
But you know what I'm saying? That's pretty cool. I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, and I'm just there to kind of and pretty much my role is just to pretty much give them a challenge and so when they actually play a game and kind of get them through it, give them the experience. Because it's what they want the character to do.
It's like you said, it's really hard to end a campaign. I mean, keeping a campaign together is hard.
It is.
Okay, so how do you feel about no magic campaigns? This is the good one.
Yes, it's a terrible idea.
And you need to say everything that you said when we first asked that question. Remember? Go ahead and just say what's on your mind, man. Because I know you got a lot to say about it.
Terrible idea. Like, there's really no reason not to have magic in like the game. Like that's pretty much like a good third of like what makes D&D fun. I think is all the magical stuff. I mean, I guess if that's your taste, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of bland.
That's it. That's all you can say. We had like a 20-minute conversation about this. No, nothing.
I mean, it's just basically like, imagine if you took the dragons out of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Or if there was no monsters in it,
What about freaking icing off of a cake? You know what I mean? And like, come on. You're gonna eat a cake without icing?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's plenty of other RPG games that don't have magic. I just finished doing one.
Yeah.
What was it? Mutants. The Mutants Mutants Down Under. I don't know if you've ever played that or not, but
and there's stuff like Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of role-playing games that you can do that doesn't have any magic whatsoever. So I don't see why you would run a D&D game without magic.
Yeah.
That's pretty strange. It's not going to give you heartburn just thinking about it, is it?
No.
Okay. How much do you vary your encounters?
I like adding like different things for players to face, like give them like a decent challenge. Like I like thinking about like different like tactics, how the monsters would react and how they would do, fight in combat. like how like ogres, they're like really dumb, so they would do like stupid things like run like right into you, stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. And what kind of guard creatures do you enjoy using in campaigns? Like creatures that guard castles or certain areas. What type of guard creatures do you use?
Say ogres are pretty fun because that gets to like a certain like point into like the campaign where they're getting like a little bit more stronger than the beginning when they begin, you know. Ogre's kind of like the first big test of them because he's a really powerful thing, but he's not extremely hard to beat. It's just like a big lumbering like brute that they have to fight.
Do you ever get caught up in exotic creatures?
Yeah.
Like what kind?
Like if they're like a, I think there was a thing called like a blood beetle or whatever, and basically it was just like a flying like bat insect that would just, you know, fly up on top of you and like drain your blood.
Yeah.
And like they would also like leave behind a disease that the player could catch after they, you know, they're pretty much like a mix of mosquito and bat. They're really interesting.
Now,
I like little monsters like that have different effects.
Now we talked about the guarded creatures and how much do you vary your encounters. Now, how do you or actually tell us a little bit about the deck of many things. That'd be the best one. I know you really like that one. That's a good topic. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, it's a really interesting wondrous item. It's an absolute that can be an absolute campaign killer because it's like really ridiculous and has a lot of like powerful effects. Like basically, there's you'll pretty much have like a deck of many things. There'll be an actual like playing deck. Like the DM would actually bring like a deck of 22 cards based on like the little chart that's on it, and the effects vary. Like one of them radically changes an alignment of the character that draws it. That's like the two of spades.
Okay, now I've got it pulled up on the thing for you. So, do you want to go through some of these and give us a little insight? Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the deck of many things. Okay. So, do you want me to read them, or are you willing to read them?
I mean, I'm not really gonna go through like the entire thing, so that'd take a long time. There's like a few like strong like effects, you know.
You got, I think it's just 6, 9, 12, 13, 14,
22 cards.
22 cards. Now, which one, which ones would you be willing to talk about?
I mean, really, like there's just a few like really like powerful effects, like the one I just said. Yeah, the two of spades, which is also balance. Yeah, and it pretty much radically changes the alignment of the creature that draws it from the deck. The comment, the character has single family defeat a hostile monster or monsters encountered, and if he successfully gains enough experience to level.
Now the two of spades is balance, right? It changes the alignment instant. And the turret card is Exile Justice. So with balance. Now what was the next one that you was talking about?
The two of diamonds.
Two of diamonds. It's comet.
Or the two, yeah, which is the plague. Or the two of swords. The tarot version. You can get a tarot card, a tarot deck, or just a playing deck if you wanted to. It's kind of cool.
This is defeat the next monster you meet to gain 1 life.
Right,
so those are the only two that you're really interested in.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a bunch of cool ones, like the Queen of Diamonds. You're granted wishes.
Queen of Diamonds.
Or yeah, or the club of the Jack of Clubs, where you have to defeat a Red Wraith.
Okay, so the Queen of Diamonds is its black is moon, and its tarot card is 8th of the moon.
Yeah.
And you are granted 1d4 wishes. 1 die for
Mhm.
wishes. And
Yep, that's just given to you.
okay. And the other one was what? The Queen or the King of Spades?
No, the Jack of Clubs.
Oh, Jack of Clubs. That is here. No, that's Jack.
That's a plaque of.
Plaque
Yeah, it's a
of-
plaque of skull.
And then 8 Death is the
Mm-hmm.
tarot
The
card.
tarot card.
And the summary of effect is defeat Dread Wraith or be forever destroyed. Now explain that one a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, when you draw it, it summons a dread wraith that you have to defeat by. They have to defeat by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody does come in to aid you, then other dread wraiths are summoned to fight them.
Oh wow.
And if you lose, then you are just forever slain. You can't be revived even with a wish or a miracle. Your character's just dead. He's gone.
Okay. Now, I know we've had this conversation last night. What is your general opinion about this deck? Just let everybody know on here.
Yeah.
What you
This is a campaign killer. Like, this deck will pretty much ruin your campaign because there's so many like strong and negative effects to it. But if you want to put something like crazy in there, I guess you can throw it in. It's a cool idea, but it's just really chaotic and can ruin a campaign.
That's something for people to really know, because you can put things in there that just destroy your campaign. Even we were talking about that last night, even with Magic, okay? I mean, the card game, they've literally had to ban entire decks because of that. And you gotta be careful with what you allow in your games.
Yeah, like the throne card, the King of Hearts. You actually become a king and you get your own land and castle.
Oh wow, that's something.
Like the character becomes a true leader in people's eyes. So the castle gain appears in any open area she wishes, but the decision to where to place it must be made within an hour. So if you draw like the King of Hearts for the Four Staves and the Tarot card, you'll become a king.
My gosh. Yeah, see, that's just, and that's just from flipping a card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the deck of many things, the whole what you should be doing, and you can use the dice too if you want to, I guess. But I would just say it would just be cool to have like a little like 22 card deck that players have to actually draw from.
It kind of reminds
You know
me.
what I'm saying? Like that'd be pretty cool.
It kind of reminds me of playing freaking Pokemon on Minecraft. I hate saying it, but they've got these mods, or even like World.
And if you want to be like extra fancy with it, you have a tarot deck. You can just use a tarot deck to do it, and they have to draw tarot cards.
Okay. Now, what about Wondrous items? Are you interested in those?
Yeah, they're really cool items that have different like extraordinary effects, like magical effects.
Could you tell us a few Wondrous items that you do like specific Wondrous items?
I do like ion stones. They're pretty cool. Pretty much like different little like psionic stones that you just put up above your head, and it just rotates around your head, giving you like a bonus stat.
Okay.
And then it doesn't like count to your slot, so you can just pretty much be kitted out with like a bunch of magical items. You can just add that anyway, because it's just something that rotates around your head continuously.
That does sound pretty cool. So,
Yeah, I think those are pretty cool.
how do you feel about magical curse items?
They can be pretty interesting. I think if you're running like campaign that has like it can be another like piece of the story of a campaign, because
Give
the Devil War the Devil War campaign I was doing, it was gonna be like about like this demon king who pretty much got banished to the his soul pretty much got banished into this blade, and it was kind of thrust into the material realm, and the player was gonna pick that up and pretty much have that as like a cursed sword that would desire the blood of mortals to sustain itself. Like the player couldn't get rid of it. Like if he tried to like toss it aside, it would just reappear in his hand.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I mean, there's some of them that are freaking bound to you like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You just can't get rid
And
of
it was gonna be an intelligent blade, so it would have its own personality and everything.
Yeah.
They communicate telepathically with the wielder.
See, that kind of whenever I played, it's just like you got armor too that you can do that with. You know what I mean? You take the fragment,
Yeah.
it just kind of like shapes around you. Well, I always got paranoid about those at some points. You know, not all the time. I'm not always. I haven't been lately about all of it, but at one time I wouldn't use that kind of armor because I was very suspicious in the game about my own armor. You know what I mean? Somebody could freaking curse the armor I've got on. Next thing you know, this stuff is stuck to your body. You know, so like there's one where freaking if you only have one piece and you go to bed, when you wake up the next day, it'll be just completely, you know, it'd grow back basically. So you would have it the next day. So that's bound to you, it's stuck to you, and then if it gets cursed, it's there, you know.
Yeah.
But most of those armor, they've got passwords, you know, so that you can, or command words, I should say, so you can, they'll come off. It took me a long time before I'd actually let that sink in. That probably is true. That's the way I saw things.
Yeah, once again, it's about context. Like, does that kind of make sense in the world? Would they find into it? But, you know, that's kind of how I think about it when I integrate those in my campaigns.
Yeah. What about intelligent items? How do you feel about
Yeah, that's the. You know, like I said, it was kind of like under the umbrella of like that sword I made, make it really interesting, because it was gonna be like the soul of a former like demon king or devil king. We got cast out of the nine hells.
I forget which movie it was, but it was an old movie back whenever I was a kid, and the sword could actually talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was gonna be a soul of a pit devil.
Yeah.
I'm sure a very powerful type of devils in the nine hells.
Well, you know, I come to the end of the questions that I had for you. Is there anything else that you want to say? I mean, just off the top of your head that you'd be willing to talk about after we've asked all these questions and you've answered all of them?
I mean, nothing that I can really think of. You know, I just like D&D. It's a really fun experience if you can actually get people together to play it. You know,
That's what
it's
I was
a good way to kind of
too,
express your creativity.
If there's any way that you want people to freaking contact you, man, I mean, if you want to put your information where they can contact you, you know, stuff like that, because it's a good idea. I mean, the way you can, if you really want to get back into it, you know, let people know that you're willing to do it, you know.
Yeah, maybe.
I know you go by Sage Theory.
Yep.
And if anybody wants to ever get in contact with you, they can freaking make a comment on this YouTube video, which this is going to be a podcast too. So after that, if you're listening to the podcast and you want to contact, maybe get games going with Sage Theory, just make a comment when it's a YouTube video. And we've also got a Discord, which Sage is also a part of, so you can come in here and have conversations with him, asking questions. I'm sure you'd be willing to answer them with Sage.
Yeah, of course.
And I really appreciate you coming on here, man. A lot of the stuff you said is really good stuff. I mean, you broke down the stat sheet and explained to people exactly how the stat sheet works. That's something that a lot of people really need to know. And
It's good stuff.
you also gave your perspective as a DM too. You know what I mean? I loved your attitude about that. You were like, that's the way they want it. You know, it was like, this ain't my story. But it was good. that's the way that a DM should act whenever they're running a game. So
Yeah.
if that's all we have, then I will end this, and I also want to say thank you for being here, and maybe we can have you back on here again later for another interview concerning games and stuff, because I know you're into games, so if you're willing to do that, we
Yeah,
can
sounds good.
do that at another time. Well,
Sounds good to me.
thank you very much, Sage.
This was brought to you by Franklin County Internet Gaming Society on YouTube and Facebook, Roger Hanson on Patreon, and Gaming with Infamous on Discord. Thanks for stopping by. Listen to our podcast on any of these platforms: Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, RadioPublic, Spotify. Support us on Patreon, and check us out on Discord. All the links can be found in the video description below. We thank you for your participation. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, share, make comments.